Hello and welcome to this Magic Leap developer tutorial. Today we're going to be speaking about these, our hands. Now I'm not going to do any magic tricks here, but I am going to show you how to implement hand tracking and poses into the Magic Leap 1 with Unity. In Magic Leap 1 we have 15-point hand tracking on each of our hands and 8 predefined poses. These are closed hand, open hand, L, index, C, pinch, thumbs up, and OK. So today in Unity, I'm going to show you how to enable some key points in the hand tracking, as well as have some poses to pick up objects. So we'll go up to an object, we'll select it with our pinch and move it around and then place it back into the scene. So let's get started straight into Unity.
So let's start off from where we were on the previous tutorial. We had our control input, our camera in, and our spatial meshing. First thing we're going to do is create a new game object and call it hand track input. And this will be where all of our hand tracking is derived from. We're going to create 3 spheres, which will be our hand tracking index finger, thumb, and wrist. We'll scale this one to be 0.01 along each of the axes. Remove the sphere collider, rename this one to thumb, duplicate them, and have index and wrist. We'll go back to our hand tracking game object. I'm going to add a new component. I'm going to add a new script called hand tracking script. We'll create a new script there and open it up in Visual Studio. Next up, we're going to go to the creator portal onto the hand tracking tutorial. You can go on the creator portal and go down to develop, Unity, and Unity tutorials and samples, and you can see here hand tracking key points. This is a text-based tutorial which shows you how to do key points and poses, and it shows you here the 15-point hand tracking that I described earlier on. This script here, hand track script, is a great starter point for you to do key point tracking and poses. So we're going to copy this and paste it in to our script. In this, you can see that we're getting the hand poses as an enum, and we're declaring 6 different poses here. We have some position vectors. We have the game objects, the sphere, the thumb, the index, and the wrist, as well as gestures. In start, we're applying these different gestures into the gesture array, as well as getting the key points. And then in update, we're searching for each of these gestures and saying, if this is fist, pose is fist, if it's thumb, it's thumb. Then in show points, we're getting the 3 points and applying them to the thumb, the index finger, and the wrist. And that is the basis of this script. So let's go back to Unity, and we can see here we can now put in finger, thumb, and wrist. Those game objects were created with spheres on them. We can press play, and we can see the key points shown on our hand. There we go, just do some meshing there, and now I've got my hand in front of the Magic Leap device, and you can see that it's matching up with where those key points are. Let's open Device Stream in the Package Manager so you can see through the headset into the real world. And you can see here, as I move my hand around, we can see the key points are following the base of my index finger, the base of my thumb, and my wrist. So as I rotate, move them around. So let's just get rid of the mesh because we don't really need that right now. Let's go on this object here and make sure that we click occlusion instead of wireframe. And let's also create a mesh parent so all of the meshes that are created in our scene go under this as a child. So mesh parent, let's go up to our spatial mapper where it says the mesh parent, and we'll pull this object in. Now when we press play, any mesh created will be a child of that mesh parent game object. It just cleans up our hierarchy a lot more so we can see everything that we need to. And there we go, we can still see hand tracking works absolutely fine. But now I actually want to put the points at the very tips of my finger and thumb. So in our show points method, we can see we're getting the key points 0 in the array. We actually want to get the second point in the key point, which is the tip of the finger and the tip of the thumb. So change these to 2 instead of 0. We can press play again, and we can see in Magic Leap Remote and Device Stream that they're right at the tips of them here. You'll notice that there's a slight offset on Device Stream, but in the device looking through, it exactly matches up 1-to-1. Now that we have key points working on our finger, thumb, and wrist, I want to instantiate a game object when I do the thumb pose. So I'm just going to create a bool here saying can I place and set this to false. Then within our update method, where the pose is set to thumb, we're going to instantiate a game object here. So we'll say if can I place equals true, game object, object to place equals instantiate, and then the object to place, which we're going to pass in through the editor. Then we'll say position 0, which is the position array of where our index finger is, and then transform.rotation. There's no rotation within this game object. Then we'll say can I place equals false, because we're still within that method. And then we need to create that public game object, object to place, that will be our sphere. At the very end of when there's no gestures at all, that's when we can say can I place equals true again. So we can only place one object at a time. As soon as we're not doing another pose, it'll flick back to true, and then we can place another object again. So now in our hand track component, we can see here we have to pull in an object to place. So let's create a sphere. Let's scale this down to say 0.1, 0.01. And then we will make this a prefab. And then we will remove it from the hierarchy in our hand track input. We will pull it into our component. So now when we press play, we should see our key points. We should do a thumb, and we can then spawn our game object. So as soon as it recognizes the thumb pose, it instantiates that game object wherever the position 0 is, which is our index finger. We could also set this to be the thumb, the wrist, any other key point within our hand tracking. So next what we want to do is to put our index finger into an object. It'll change color to signify that we're interacting with it, and then pinch to grab and move it around. So in our script, let's go back in and create this private void on trigger enter. We're going to say if the other game object tag is interactable, like we did with our controller input, and if can I grab equals false, then we'll have a selected game object that gets passed through the object that we're colliding with. Can I grab turns into true, and then we'll change the other game object, the object that we're interacting with, to a different color, say red. We'll create this bool, can I grab, set it to false, and we'll create a public game object, which will be this selected game object. So it'll be very empty at first, but as soon as we grab an object, that becomes a selected game object. Then we'll create this private void on trigger exit for when your fingertip leaves the object. So again, if the other game object tag is interactable, can I grab equals false, and the game object turns back to white. Now in update, you can see we don't currently have pinch. So we're going to replace one of these, say fist, with pinch. So every instance of fist, we will rename with pinch. And then in this section of the update, we're going to say if can I grab is true. The selected game object position equals the position of this current game object that the script is on. And then we're going to set the radius of the sphere collider to be 0.1. So it grows in size, so it always stays within it. At the very top of update, we need to make sure that the game object that this script is on always stays at the tip of our index finger. So we'll say transform.position equals pos1, which is the index finger position. And then at the very end, when we're not doing any pose at all, we have to say if selected game object and can I grab equals false, then we're going to set the selected game object to null, and then we're going to select the sphere collider. We're resetting the radius back to 0.01. This is so that when we select a game object, the sphere collider on the top of the finger will go much larger, so the game object won't come out of it when we're moving our hands. Let's go to our sphere and set the tag to be interactable and set isTrigger in the sphere collider, like so. And then we're going to add a rigid body, but we're going to turn gravity off. This is because in our script and our onTrigger, it has to have a rigid body to enter the trigger. Back in our script, we're going to grab the show points call, and we're going to put it at the top of update. You may have noticed that when we do a pose, it doesn't show any points, and that will make it show points at all times. The final thing to do is go to our hand tracking game object, add a sphere collider, set the radius to be 0.01, and now when we press play, we can spawn with doing a thumb pose. We can put our index finger into the game object and it changes color, and then we can do the pinch pose within the game object to move it around. You can see now we can spawn multiple game objects doing the thumb pose and easily grab or pinch and move them around in our scene. You could take this implementation and add things such as two-handed interactions, different gestures, or even a raycast from the fingertip and grab things from afar. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful. Keep checking back for more tutorials, more video examples, and be sure to check out the Creator Portal and always the Magic Leap Devs Twitter handle and the rest of the community. Together, we can build the future.